let you know and to keep you enlightened so that you will always be informed. This is Informative News Reporting. I'm your one and only anchor, Aliyah Abordahe. For today's news, we will be learning about taxation. It consists of the fundamentals of taxation and even some features of the trade law. Before we start with the deep discussions regarding taxation, I will first give you some background about it. The beginning of idea of taxation cannot be dated in the continuum of our history. It came as a matter of survival for the government. The development of tax law as a comprehensive and general system is a recent phenomenon resulting from the evolution of taxes and increasing state economy relationship. A tax law is a body of rules passed by the legislature by virtue of which the government acquires a claim or a property as a matter of legal duty or obligation by operation of law. You can define taxation as the power of the sovereign to impose burden or charges upon persons' property or property rights for the use and support of the government in order to enable it to discharge its function. Now that you have background about taxation, we will now proceed with its nature. Reporter Micaela, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I will be the one to report the news about the nature of taxation power. The power of taxation is both inherent and legislative in character because it has been reserved by the state for it to exercise. It is an essential and inherent attribute to sovereignty belonging as a matter of right every independent government. The government possesses it without being conferred by the people. The power inherent because the sustenance of government requires contribution from them. The power of taxation is legislative in character because only the legislator can consider of the policy, necessity, and public welfare having the power to tax. It must also possess the sole power to prescribe the means by which the tax shall be collected and designate officers through whom it shall be reinforced.
Thank you for that informative news, Reporter Micaela. For the next news, it will be given by Reporter Elia.
Good morning, Anchor Aliyah. For this news, it will be all about purpose of taxation. The primary purpose of taxation is to raise revenues for public needs so that the people may be enabled to live in a civilized society. It also serves a variety of purposes. It may be increased in order to stabilize prices and stimulate greater production. Taxes on imports may be increased to favor domestic production or decreased to encourage foreign trade. It can also mobilize capital to be poured into capital deficient fields of business. Thus, taxation is an instrument of fiscal policy, and fiscal policy influences the direction and structure of money supply, prices, and of the national economy.
That was a nice delivery. Thank you, Reporter Elia. We won't be wasting time and we will go on with the next informative news. Reporter Nico.
Greetings, Uncle Aliyah. I'll be reporting the news about the basis of taxation. The power of taxation originated from the theory that existence of government is a necessity. No government, whether democratic or despotic, can exist without resources to finance its operations. A true tax is an exaction for revenue that is for the support of the government. There are five inherent limitations of the power of taxation. The first one is limitation of public purpose. A tax is for public purposes where it is for the support of the government or any of the recognized sub-object of the government, or where it will directly promote the welfare of the community in equal measure. The second one is the limitation of territorial jurisdiction. The general rule is that the sovereignty of a state extends only as far as its territorial jurisdiction. It follows that its taxing power does not extend beyond its territorial limits, but within its limit, it may tax a person, property, income, or business. The third one would be the limitation of double taxation. The double taxation may be understood as direct duplicate taxation with which means taxing twice by the same public authority for the same purpose during the taxing period of some of the property in the territory in which the tax is paid without taking all of them a second time. The fourth one is the limitation of non-delegation of taxing power. The Constitution provides that sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. Under a republican form of government, the people created a legislative department for the exercise of their legislative power in the manner in which those rules shall be given effect. The power cannot be delegated to the president and to the local government. However, it may be delegated to the municipal corporations, which are the instrumentalities of the state for the better administration of the government in matters of local concerns. And for the last one, limitation of exemption of government, agency, or instrumentality. The general rule is that the agencies and instrumentalities of the government are exempted from taxation. So properties owned by the Philippine government, any province, city, municipality, or municipal districts are exempted from taxation. However, government entities performing profit-making activities are not exempted from taxation.
Thank you for that fruitful information, Reporter Nico. Let's move to the next informative news that will be delivered by Reporter Kelly.
Pleasant morning, everyone. I will start this news with the three basic principles of taxation. First is fiscal advocacy that emphasizes the source of revenue as a whole must be sufficient to meet the expanding governmental expenses, regardless of business conditions, export taxes, trade balances, and problems of economic adjustments. The second one is equality of theoretical justice, which refers to the use of revenues which must be believed based on the taxpayer's ability to pay. Lastly, administrative feasibility means the tax system must be clear to the taxpayers, can be enforced and inconvenient, and not be burdensome or discouraging to a business activity.
That was some enlightening news. Let's now go on and proceed with Reporter Marvin's informative news.
Reporter Marvin, and I'm here to share some knowledge about the three inherent powers of the government. Police power is the first one, the authority of the government to regulate the activities of an individual, even in the absence of law for the benefit and protection of public welfare. Next is taxation, the authority of the government to improve taxes, charges, and fees from its taxpayers under its sovereignty and or territorial jurisdiction to support its necessary expenses, and lastly, eminent domain, the authority of the government to expropriate private property for public use upon payment of a just compensation.
Thank you for that great delivery, Reporter Marvin. Let's continue with the next informative news. Now, Reporter Cyrene.
This time, I will discussing some news about the 7 essential characteristics of taxes. Number 1, it is an enforced contribution tax is not voluntary and its imposition is in no way dependent upon the will of consent of the person being taxed. Number 2, it is exacted pursuant to legislative authority. The Congress determines who to tax, what to tax, and how to tax shall be collected. Number 3, it is contribution and money. Number 4, it is levied upon person, property, and property rights. Number 5, it is for the purpose of raising revenue. Number 6, it must be for public purpose. Taxes are spent to support the government. They are not supposed to be used for private purposes. And number 7, it must be proportionate in character. The share of the taxpayer of the public burden is essentially based on one's ability to pay.
We are getting so much learning here. This time, we can ask questions on our social media and we will pick one question for this informative news while the reporters are delivering it. Reporter Micaela.
I'm back with another informative news for you. This time, it will be about classification of taxes and I will be reporting it together with reporter Aliyah. There are two taxes according to purpose. First is fiscal taxes, which are designed to raise revenues for governmental needs. Second is regulatory taxes that are designed to achieve some social and economic goals, irrespective of whether revenue is actually raised or not.
Next, there are three taxes according to object. First is personal. Captivation or poll tax, which is imposed on individuals within the jurisdiction of the taxing power, without regard to the amount of their property or occupation in which they are engaged. Second, will be property taxes that are computed upon the valuation of property and assessed at the owner's domicile, although privileges may be included in the valuations. Third is excise tax, which is imposed directly by the legislature and the sum is measured by the amount of business done or the extent to which the privilege has been enjoyed or exercised.
Following, there are two taxes according to subject. First is direct tax. It is when the person on whom the tax is imposed absorb the tax or bears it. Second will be the indirect tax, wherein charge paid by a person other than the one on whom it is legally imposed.
Then there are two taxes according to determination of amount. First will be specific tax is of fixed amount by the head or member or by some standards of weight and measurement and requires no assessment other than a listing or classification of the subjects to be taxed. Second is ad valorem tax is a fixed proportion of the value of the property with respect to which the taxes are assessed, and required that the intervention of assessors to appraise the value of such property before the amount due from each taxpayer can be determined.
Succeeding, there are two taxes according to authority imposing the tax. First is national taxes that are levied and collected by the national government. Second will be municipal tax, which is levied and collected by the municipal government.
Lastly, there are three taxes according to rate. First will be proportional tax that is based on a fixed percentage regardless of the amount of income, property or other bases to be taxed, a single rate being applied to different objects with different values. Second is progressive tax, wherein the tax rate increases as the tax base increases. Third will be a regressive tax, wherein the effective rate decreases as the base increases.
Thank you very much for that educated news, Reporter Micaela and Reporter Elia. Now for the question. One asks, what are some examples of taxes you can give from what you reported?
Percentage tax on locally manufactured commodities for fiscal taxes, protective tariff or custom duties for legatory taxes. Residence tax for personal, captivation, or pool tax. Real estate tax is an example of the following. Property ad valorem and municipal tax, income tax is an example of following. Direct national and progressive tax, value added tax is an example of the following. Tax on cigars and cigarettes are also for ad valorem tax.
I hope Reporter Micaela's answer helps you to understand it more. Now, we will proceed with our informative news. It will be once again Reporter Kelly.
Reporter Kelly is back to spread another informative news. Now it will be all about forms of escape from taxation. There are six forms of escape from taxation. Number one is shifting. It is the transfer of the burden of a tax by the original payer on the one on whom the tax was assessed or imposed to another or someone else. Number two will be the capitalization, which is a special from a backward shifting. It occurs when the good is durable good, the whole series of future taxes is to be shifted backward at the same time of fair case, and the future taxes must be capitalized and deducted in a lump of sum from the price offered. Number three is transformation, and this is effected through the process of production. When the producer pays the taxes himself and recovers the additional expenses by improving his production, thereby turning out units of his production at lower cost. Number four will be evasion, which is an illegal effort to avoid payment of tax. Number five is avoidance, wherein there is used legally. First of all, to reduce tax liability, and number six will be exemption. It's a grant of immunity to a particular person or corporation from a tax upon properties or exercise which they are obligated to pay.
Thank you for a very precise delivery, Reporter Kelly. We will now move to the next informative news that will be about local taxation. Before we call out for our reporter Cyrene, I will give a brief background about it. Since the power of taxation is an incidence of sovereignty that is absolutely necessary to maintain government and therefore inherent in the state, local government units such as provinces, municipalities, cities, and barangays can exercise the power not only if conferred on them. The constitutional provisions as to taxation of LGUs are ordinarily not self-executing because they require conferring the power to tax. The local power of taxation is subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed and only purposes as may be expressed. Local tax may be valid only for the public purpose and yet invalid for private purposes. Except when allowed by law, local funds shall be devoted exclusively to local purposes. Now, for more thorough learnings regarding local taxation, here is reporter Cyrene.
The policy of taxation in the Philippines is provided primarily by the Constitution of the Philippines and three Republic Acts. First is the Article 6. Section 28 of the Constitution states that the rule of taxation shall be uniform and equitable, and that Congress shall evolve a progressive system of taxation. Next is the National Internal Revenue Code that is enacted as Republic Act Number 8424 or the Tax Reform Act of 1997 and subsequently amended by Republic Act Number 10963 or the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Act Number 2017. Lastly, major sources of revenue for the local government units or LGUs are the taxes collected by virtue of Republic Act Number 7160 or the Local Governments Code of 1991 and those sourced from the proceeds collected by virtue of local ordinance. Taxes imposed at the national level are collected by the Bureau of International Revenue or BIR, while those imposed at the local government level which are the provincial, city, municipal, and barangay are collected by the local treasurer office.
Now we are down to our last subtopic, which is the train law. Are you in the line, Reporter Marvin?
Yes, Anchor Aliyah. This last informative news will be about some of the salient features of RA 10963, also known as the Tax Reform Acceleration and Inclusion Train Law. Example given here is the income tax. On December 19, 2017, the President signed into the Law Package 1 of the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Train Bill, also known as Republic Act Number 10963. The law contains amendments to several provisions of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997. It shall take effect on January 1, 2018 following its complete publication in the Official Gazette or at least one newspaper of general circulation. The law was published in the Official Gazette on December 27, 2019. This is the new personal income tax table effective this 2023. As you can see from the table, those are the range of annual taxable income and their respective tax due. If it is not more than 250,000 pesos, it will be considered as exempted from personal income tax. However, if it is over 250,000 pesos, there is a corresponding tax due that one has to pay. Here are some of the features of the train law. Statutory minimum wage rates are exempted from income tax. Other ones that are exempted are the holiday pay, overtime pay, night shift differential pay, and hazard pay earned by minimum wage earners. There will also be 13th month pay and other benefits with maximum of 90,000 pesos. Other personal and additional exemptions are repealing of taxes for Section 33A of the Magna Carta for persons with disability and Section 22B of the Foster Care Act of 2012. Any person whose gross receipts or gross sales exceeds 3 million pesos in 1 year shall be subject to VAT, and any person whose sales or receipts are exempt under Section 109B of the Code from the payment of VAT and who is not a VAT registered person shall pay a tax equivalent to 3% of his gross quarterly sales or receipts.
Thank you for that, Reporter Marvin. That's all for our informative news today. I just want to commend all the reporters who share all the information about taxation. I'm once again your one and only anchor, Aliyah, to educate, to let you know, and to keep you enlightened so that you will always be informed. This is Informative News. Thank you for learning with us.